Chapter 24. As incredibly stupid as it sounds, I hadn't really been expecting to become pregnant. I wasn't stupid though. I certainly was aware where babies came from, and it wasn't like we used protection. However, I just hadn't really thought of the consequences of it. In hindsight, it was surprising that it had taken me this long to become pregnant, really. Still, my first reaction was a mixture of terror and shock. Many women would be happy, joyful to have their first child. I was panicking and panicking hard. Even if I didn't look like it, by this world's standards I would be considered an old woman if people knew my total age. And while I barely ever experienced more than a slice of what each world had to offer, I had experienced more than what most would ever experience. I had no freedom and servitude, war and peace, authority and submission. I had known technology that is so far beyond the wildest dreams of the people around me that even an explanation of what the technology did, much less how it worked, would be incomprehensible to them. All of that experience meant nothing, because I had never experienced this before. Worse still, this was a terrible world to give birth in. Leaving aside the geopolitical instability, this world lacked both of either the technology or the magic to make the birth safe. My child and I could die. It wouldn't even be surprising if we did. My own life was unimportant. I couldn't die, not really, but the thought of my unborn child dying froze my heart solid. First things first though, I had to tell Soot. I left the Smiths immediately and went directly to the palace with my thoughts and feelings in turmoil. I had to prepare, I thought, for the possibility that I wouldn't survive. I didn't want my child to be raised without their mother, but it was better to prepare for the worst. I found Soot in the throne room, and despite the importance of the meeting I pulled him aside. Dear, I heard the news about the steal by messenger, he said with a partially bemused and partially annoyed tone. You didn't need to pull me out of the meeting to tell me. This isn't about the steal. I took a deep breath, wondering why I was suddenly nervous about telling Soot. He wasn't a boyfriend who I was afraid would leave me if he thought I was pregnant, and indeed, the common sense of this world was that my job in this relationship was to get pregnant in the first place. Soot was waiting for me to explain, so I let out the in my lungs and took another deep breath before continuing. Soot, I say as I look him directly in the eyes. I am pregnant. At first, he didn't react at all. It seemed to take a few seconds for my words to register with him, and I saw his eyes widen when they did. I had braced myself, more of that semi-conscious fear shining through, but his outburst that followed was not in anger, but happiness. That is wonderful news, Soot said, pulling me into a tight hug. It seems that the gods have not finished blessing us today. We need to celebrate. I'll have the servants put together a feast, although you will have to limit your wine now. Listening to Soot excitedly planning out a celebration for our child soothed me quite a bit. Unlike my father, I would never have to worry about Soot doing anything but showing love for our child. With that worry out of the way, after the feast I would begin writing down an explanation of who I was, what I was, and every idea I could think of. Just in case the worst was to happen. First Prince Upilimus Soot of the Hentai Poff. I have seen the chaos of battle, felt the insanity of men killing men as cities burned. I have felt the terror of monsters, of being stalked by an apex predator that knows neither fear nor failure. I have felt the creeping hopelessness of governance, watching as things fall apart around me despite my best plans and efforts. And yet, never have I felt so helpless before today when my wife was giving birth. My first child born to my first wife had an easy birth. Melnia had been in pain, but never was the survival of her or the child in doubt, and she recovered quickly afterwards. My second wife, my beautiful, brilliant, and often incomprehensible had been far less convinced that things would go well for her. She was right, as she usually was. In the latter half of her pregnancy, she had bled often and none of the wise women had known why. Had been in pain and had easily fallen ill as the months progressed, and I had learned that even with all the strength of an empire behind me, some answers simply couldn't be found. Now, She was in labor and I didn't need my skills to know what was going on when I could simply see the worried faces on the midwives, wise women, and priests. Traditionally, I would stay outside the room as my wife, and there were only two reasons that they would call me in. The first was that the birth had finished and the second was to say goodbye, probably to both mother and child. I hurried into the room, ignoring the blood as I quickly approached the bed and clasped Hammer's hand. She was breathing fast, and her eyes were filled with pain. Yet, they were also clear and held determination along with a vague air of victory. Sorry, Sue, she interrupted with a gasping breath. But I need you to do something for me. Could I borrow your knife for a second? Don't give up. I panicked at her request, my mind immediately jumping to what she would use the knee. Stop thinking like that. She snapped, weakly hitting me. I know better than most what it feels like to be close to death, and all that matters is that I die alone and not with our child. Now give me your damn knife, and one of you get ready to pull our child out. I had started to hand her the knife I always carried with me before she had finished her statement, but before I could ask what she meant, Hem had already plunged the knife into her own stomach. Hem! I shout, reaching for her as she screams and yanks the blade through her. My mind is blank, and most everyone is shocked into stillness, but a single wise woman gasps and moves, pulling my wife's stomach open. The wise woman pulls the child out, the umbilical cord wrapped around its neck, and there is a small feeling of relief when I hear the child cry. Our child is alive, but my wife. Sorry, Sue, she says as her voice starts to go quiet and her eyes become unfocused. I left a letter for you. More too, just promise me. Love our child, even though I'm gone. I swear it upon my very soul, I give the oath with tears in my eyes. I love you, Hem. It kind of snuck up on me, but I love you too, Sue. Hem answered with a smile, and then closed her eyes and passed away. It was a while before I was well enough to read the letter she left. Before I saw the notes she left me and the goals she had wished to accomplish. But I swore another oath when I did, I would see her will done, even if I had to shift the heavens themselves. I might not see her in the next life, but I would at least know that she was never truly gone. ****. Cadence leap off. I opened my eyes to see the same smooth, white ceiling again. I took my time getting up, taking some deep breaths as I considered my last life. I was not as grief-stricken this time as the previous ones, although the grief was still there. I imagine that it always will be unless I live a life completely alone and never have to worry about the inevitable separation that will occur. I hadn't really expected to survive giving birth, and I had spent the months leading up to that making my peace with it. I spent the time I could with Suit, and when I couldn't I took up pen and parchment to write down everything I could think of. Hopefully he will be able to use them. Not being able to be with my own child hurt as well. I didn't even know if I had given birth to a boy or a girl. That pain was sharp as a knife even with my emotions being dampened here. However, there was nothing I could do but embrace that pain and move on. I had to be content that I had at least saved my baby's life, and honestly, what more could I wish for? A lot more, actually. But if I wanted more, I had to be stronger. So I got up off the marble slab and acknowledged the box floating ahead of me. Welcome back, Cadence Lee, and congratulations on completing your third life. Please step up to the podium and have your life be measured. Hello again, Pody, I said, taking a moment to stretch. I had been a mess the last time I was here, and I don't think I had noticed that I was back in my very first body whenever I returned here. It was a bit strange to have my body change so suddenly. Going from 9 months pregnant to normal in an instant was an odd experience. I still wasn't comfortable with being naked, but living as Hammer had made me feel a lot more comfortable being barefoot and wearing shoes, so I suppose it was a plus. I walk up to the black podium and place my hand within the silver outline saying, I guess I didn't manage to live very long this time either. I should really try harder next time. I would rather die of old age after a fulfilling life than like I just did. Calculating your life accomplishments. You survived 18 years. For surviving 18 years you have earned 18 points. You took part in being professionally trained in a trade. For going through 4 years of professional training you have earned 1 point. You took part in being professionally trained in several arts. For going through a total of 20 years of professional training between 3 arts you have earned 5 points. You defeated multiple enemies. For killing 134 humans and 42 animals, you have earned 144 points. Hold up a second, Pody, I interject. How exactly does the math work on that? Human lives are worth 1 point. Animal lives are worth 1/4 of a point. All decimals are rounded down to the nearest full point. So a mouse and a wolf are worth the same amount of points? That doesn't seem to make much sense, Pody. Small animals are worth 0 points. Dangerous wild animals are worth variable amounts of points depending on the animal. I pause as I think about it. It still feels like there is lots of room for weird exceptions here, but what do I know? Well, thanks for telling me that, Pody. Please continue. You have defeated multiple enemies above your level. For defeating 2 humans above your level, you have earned 4 points. You gained 9 classes. For gaining 9 classes you have earned 9 points. You gained 3 advanced classes. For gaining 3 advanced classes you have earned 6 points. You gained 41 levels. For gaining 41 levels you have earned 41 points. You have learned 22 skills. For learning 22 skills you have earned 22 points. You learned multiple languages. For being fluent in 3 languages you have earned 3 points. You were socially active. For having a combined total of friends and acquaintances between 100 and 200 people, you have earned 1 point. You were married. For being married for 2 years you have earned 2 points. You had children. For having 1 child you have earned 5 points. You were politically active. For negotiating 1 peace treaty and 1 trade treaty you have earned 12 points. You advanced technology. For introducing 3 simple technologies to the world you have earned 60 points. Hey now, I introduced a lot more than 3 pieces of tech, Pody. I glare at the podium under my hand. I left my notes with suit and they had things like flight and sanitation in them. To qualify for Incarnator points, an introduced technology must fulfill the following factors. First, it must be introduced prior to the Incarnator's death. Second, to qualify as introduced, a technology must either be spread widely throughout society or taught to a proxy that is both capable and likely to do so. Third, the technology must be able to be implemented without the Incarnator present. Technology that relies on knowledge that the Incarnator alone has, and thus becomes unusable once the Incarnator dies, will not count. Fourth, the technology must not be available in the geographic region. Technology that exists elsewhere in the world, but is not within the same geographic region and is out of reach of the average sentient may still qualify for Incarnator points at a reduced rate. So my notes wouldn't count anyways, I mused aloud. Because a lot of the stuff in there were things that I wasn't actually able to implement yet. Oh well. It sure is worth a lot of points though. You have advanced society. For introducing 2 new concepts to the world and engaging in 3 large public works projects you have earned 29 points. You were famous. For being well known by more than 1/3 of all sentient creatures in your world you have earned 20 points. You were religiously active. For helping to found a new temple and pantheon you have earned 100 points. You were blessed by the gods of the world. For receiving a collective blessing from multiple gods you have earned 10 points. Your point total for this life is 488 points. Your grade for this life is D. Your beginner's protection will last 1 more life. Well, at least it isn't hard to avoid getting a strike from failing, I say and then pause. The majority of my points came from killing so many people, introducing technology, and unifying the storm god temples. Actually, I was really lucky that life, wasn't I? None of that is easy to do. If their society had been just a bit more advanced I would have probably gotten an F. Then I had another thought and asked aloud, hey, Pody. Is getting an F grade for life the only way to get a strike? An incarnator may receive a strike in the following ways. 1. By earning less than 200 points and earning a grade of F for life. 2. Information withheld until additional prerequisites are met. 3. Information withheld until additional prerequisites are met. 4. Information withheld until additional prerequisites are met. 5. By attempting to damage the incarnator system. That is a lot of information you are hiding from me, Pody. I sigh. Can you tell me what the prerequisites I need to meet are at least? To view this information you must complete your beginner's protection lives. So next time I see you I will get to know the other requirements. At least it can't hurt me until after that point anyway, so show me my achievements, Pody. I imagined I got a decent amount this time, right? Congratulations, Incarnator. You have earned multiple achievements. For dying to save the life of another you have earned the achievement Sacrifice and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Relationships tab. For dying to save the life of your child as a mother you have earned the achievement A Mother's Love and earned 3 points. You have unlocked additional options in the Relationship tab. For killing yourself for the first time you have earned the achievement Voluntary Restart and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the General tab. For killing an animal for the first time you have earned the achievement Hunter and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Attack tab. For killing 10 animals for the first time you have earned the achievement Culling and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Attack tab. For killing 10 animals in a single attack for the first time you have earned the achievement Slaughter and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Attack tab. For killing 100 sapients for the first time you have earned the achievement Bloody Footprints and earned 5 points. You have unlocked additional options in the Attack tab. For killing 2 sapients in a single attack you have earned the achievement 2 for 1 and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Attack tab. For killing 10 sapients in a single attack you have earned the achievement Overkill and earned 2 points. You have unlocked additional options in the Attack tab. For killing 100 sapients in a single attack you have earned the achievement Massacre and earned 5 points. You have unlocked additional options in the Attack tab. For learning how to perform basic singing professionally for the first time you have earned the achievement Out Loud and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Arts tab. Perform basic singing professionally? I was the greatest singer anyone had ever heard or heard of in 4 countries. I just got achievements for killing 100 people with my voice alone. On second thought, that doesn't seem like a good thing for a singer. Hey Pody, why did I only get the achievement for basic singing? I complained to Pody, what do I have to do to reach an expert level, or a master level? Achievement hints are currently unavailable. There are achievement hints? Well, how do I make them available? To view this information you must complete your beginner's protection lives. You know Pody, I complain with a sigh. It makes more sense to give beginners this information while they are beginners instead of waiting. Not that you will change your mind, I mean, you are just a podium. Just go on. For learning how to perform basic dancing professionally for the first time you have earned the achievement Fancy Feet and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Arts tab. For learning how to use a musical instrument to a basic level professionally for the first time you have earned the achievement Music Player and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Arts tab. For learning how to sense mana for the first time you have earned the achievement First Spark and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Magic tab. For writing an original research paper for the first time you have earned the achievement Abstract and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. For bringing technological knowledge from one world to another for the first time you have earned the achievement Kingdom Building and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. For helping a civilization to develop wrought iron for the first time you have earned the achievement Dust to Rust and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. For helping a civilization to develop steel for the first time you have earned the achievement Hard As and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. For helping a civilization to develop crop rotation for the first time, you have earned the achievement Soil Renewer and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. For helping a civilization to develop universal education for the first time, you have earned the achievement Students for Teachers and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. For helping a civilization to develop its infrastructure for the first time, you have earned the achievement Road Builder and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. For obtaining an analysis type skill and using it over 100 times for the first time, you have earned the achievement Examiner and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. My Scholar's Eye skill was practically useless. I groused as I was reminded of how hopeful I was about it. It basically was only able to tell me things I already knew. For leaving a written record filled with otherworldly knowledge for the first time, you have earned the achievement Incarnator's Legacy and earned 2 points. You have unlocked additional options in the Communications tab. For being a member of royalty for the first time, you have earned the achievement Royal and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Communications tab. For helping to negotiate a diplomatic treaty for the first time, you have earned the achievement Global Politics and earned 5 points. You have unlocked additional options in the Communications tab. For being involved in a political marriage for the first time, you have earned the achievement Treaty Obligations and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Communications tab. Wow, I am getting a lot of achievements for this life. I suppose it makes sense, because I actually did things this time. Or rather, I actually did new things this time. After all, I can only get an achievement once, so I suppose that eventually, after enough lives, I will stop getting them for anything less than truly amazing feats. By the same token, I suppose as my point totals went up, I would be more able to perform amazing feats. I wonder what it will be like to be a baby with a few hundred points in each stat. I'd basically be a superhero. Honestly, that seemed kind of fun. For getting married for the first time, you have earned the achievement Tie the Knot and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Relationships tab. For having a male child as a woman for the first time, you have earned the achievement It's a Boy and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Relationships tab. For dying during childbirth for the first time, you have earned the achievement Maternal Mortality and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Vitals tab. For becoming crippled from a self-inflicted wound during an attack, you have earned the achievement Spite the Face and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Vitals tab. For performing a surgery for the first time, you have earned the achievement Chirurgeon and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Intelligence tab. For performing a self-surgery for the first time, you have earned the achievement Mad Chirurgeon and earned 2 points. You have unlocked additional options in the Vitals tab. For having vaginal sex for the first time, you have earned the achievement Hip Magic and earned 1 point. You have unlocked additional options in the Communications tab. I am not even going to comment this time, Pody, you pervert. Calculating achievement total. Your points earned from achievements is 48 points. Recalculating your life accomplishments. Your point total is 536 points. Your grade for this life is D. For obtaining a grade of D, you have earned a bonus 50 points. Would you like to access the Incarnator menus now? Yes, Pody, I would. Incarnator menu. Points balance, 594. Stats, strength, 2 plus endurance, 1 plus vitality, 7 plus agility, 1 plus dexterity, 1 plus perception, 1 plus acuity, 7 plus willpower, 1 plus charisma, 8 plus magic, 1 plus luck, 1 plus ability menu, attack, arts, communications, defense, general, intelligence, magic, relationships, vitals, records, life records, ability list, achievement list. Wow, that is a lot of points. I let out a whistle at my windfall, although as I think more it might not really be that much. Stats are way cheaper than abilities are, I wonder why? Pody didn't offer any information this time, so I could only shrug and let it go. I would at least check out the new abilities that are available, but I was pretty set on sinking my points into endurance, vitality, and luck. I actually wanted to have a long life, and if I had children again, I wanted to live to raise them. Attack Abilities tab, Hunter's Strike. When attacking an animal with intent to kill, you have 5% increased strength and agility. 25 points. Accurate Hunting. When attacking an animal with intent to kill, you have 5% increased dexterity, perception, and acuity. 30 points. Thinning the Herd. When attacking a group of animals, you regain a small amount of health and stamina for every animal you kill in a single attack after the first. 100 points. Wild Blow. Attacks that hit multiple enemies restore a small amount of stamina. 100 points. Friend and Foe 1. Your area of effect attacks deal 5% more damage to enemies and 5% less damage to friends. 200 points. 1 versus 100, one at a time. When killing a sapient, you have a small chance to gain 1 point from your victim's highest stat. 2,500 points. 1 versus 100, all at once. When attacking a group of over 100 enemies, your attacks deal 10% more damage. 2,500 points. You know, I don't even know how I killed that many people in the first place. I remembered the only battle I had taken place in. Admittedly, my class was simply better than most, but it really seemed almost too easy to do. Honestly, I doubted that I had killed as many as I was given credit for, at least not directly. I was at ground zero, and I only went deaf, so I can't imagine that I was shattering skulls or something. Maybe confusing people into attacking each other counted. Or if someone was heavily wounded and died later, did that count? I wasn't sure. Alright, show me my new arts abilities then. Arts Abilities tab, Perfect Tuning. You can instinctively tune any musical instrument. 20 points. Perfect Pitch. You always have perfect pitch. 50 points. Sure Feet. Dancing. You have 5% increased acuity, agility, and dexterity when dancing. 50 points. Perfect Pitch, huh? I had that same skill from my classes before. What happens if I have the same skill from being both a world and from being an incarnator? Do I get something special, Pody? Information withheld until prerequisites are met. Yeah, that figures. At least answering that way implies that eventually I will get something interesting for duplicates eventually. Well, hopefully interesting anyway. I suppose that the withheld information could be that I don't get anything and I just get ripped off, but I can't think of a reason why information like that would be withheld. Of course, I can't think of why any information would be withheld. The idea of Pody having an agenda is, well, the only agenda I think he has is to perv on me. Well, speaking of perversion, go on then. Communications is next, yeah. Communications Abilities tab, Sexual Prowess, Vaginal, improves your ability to perform vaginal sex. 125 points. Yup, I still have no idea why this is in the Communications tab. Or why it is a thing at all. I have difficulty imagining why I would ever spend points on that. Royal Presence increases the efficacy of charisma and willpower-based skills based on the status of your family. 500 points. Political Marriage. When involved in a political marriage, the family of the other party will find you much easier to like. 500 points. Minor Analysis. Diplomat. When using Analyze skill on a target that is subject to a diplomatic agreement, you may gain extra information on the target's likelihood to adhere to or violate the agreement. This skill's effectiveness increases with perception, acuity, willpower, charisma, luck and your familiarity with the target. 2,000 points. Incarnator Legacy 1. This skill allows the Incarnator to imbue an object that is knowledge from the Incarnator with 10% of their stats and up to 3 skills. After the Incarnator dies, a sapient who accesses the information will receive the stats and skills as a blessing. 100,000 points. General Abilities tab, Restart option, allows the Incarnator to return to the Incarnation Chamber by instantly committing suicide whenever they wish. 1,000 points. I probably should get that skill someday. I could only think that I would be forced to use it someday, in some life. Although you would think it would cost less. Your pricing is bullshit, Pody. Intelligence Abilities tab, Minor Analysis, Farming, Rotation. When using an Analyze type skill on a crop you gain information relevant to crop rotation. 25 points. Research Writer. When writing a research paper your acuity and dexterity are doubled. 50 points. Examine, a basic analysis skill. Provides very basic information about the target. 100 points. Iron Age. When teaching how to make wrought iron, the people learning from you require up to 10% less food and water and become tired up to 10% more slowly. The efficacy of this skill is dependent on your charisma and the quality of your teaching. 1000 points. Educator. When teaching your students' acuity is increased by at least 100% and can be increased by up to 200% depending on your charisma. 1500 points. Infrastructure Planning. When working on infrastructure, you require up to 10% less food and water and become tired up to 10% more slowly. Asterisk warning. This ability can only be used while working on infrastructure. Working on infrastructure for the purpose of reducing consumption or sleep will result in this skill failing to activate. Asterisk 1500 points. Fast Hands, Self-Surgery. When performing self-surgery you have 15% increased perception, dexterity, and acuity. 1000 points. Steel Age. When teaching how to make steel, the people learning from you require up to 10% less food and water and become tired up to 10% more slowly. The efficacy of this skill is dependent on your charisma and the quality of your teaching. 2000 points. Kingdom, Advancement. Populations in polities aligned with you gain a bonus to luck based on how advanced they are. 1,000,000 points. 1,000,000 points? Well, I suppose it is probably a powerful skill. I am not really sure how important luck is though, so I can't say how powerful it is. The skill also doesn't mention how much of a bonus it is, or how advanced a polity is to be to trigger the skill, or how much more advanced a polity is to be for the bonus to increase. Actually, as I am looking over the skills I unlocked, I had to wonder, hey Pody, are these all of the skills I have unlocked? The achievement notifications all say options, which is plural. Skill selection is limited until beginner's protection is over. Interesting. Confusing, for sure, but interesting as well. After my next life is over, I would definitely have to try and interrogate Pody some more. Considering this is my existence now, and as long as I don't screw up it looks like it will continue forever. Magic Abilities tab, Minor Renaissance, Perceiving mana is 10% easier. 200 points. Relationships Abilities tab, Married Life, when married, your spouse will find it easier to like you. 100 points. One life for another, when sacrificing your life for another, after your death the one you sacrificed your life for will have 0.5% of their health and stamina restored per second for the next 30 seconds. 1000 points. A mother's love, when sacrificing your life for your child as a mother, after your death your child will have 1% of their health, mana, and stamina restored per second for the next 600 seconds. 2000 points. A healthy boy, when giving birth to a male child that child inherits 1% of your vitality. 2000 points. Vitals Abilities tab, Double-Edged Defense, you take 5% less damage from your own attacks. 200 points. Doctorless, when performing a self-surgery you experience 25% less pain. 250 points. Maternal Vitality, you gain a bonus to vitality when you are pregnant that grows until birth. This bonus starts at 1% and can reach a maximum of 33%. 1000 points. Well, that is a lot of skills, Pody. Some of them look useful but, I think it probably makes more sense for me to invest in my stats instead. On the other hand, there certainly were some skills that I could probably use. The analysis skills really stand out in that regard. Purchasing Minor Analysis, Life, Minor Analysis, Chemical, Minor Analysis, Farming, Rotation, and Examine would cost me 175 points. but I could understand how useful they could be now. Minor analysis, diplomat, was out of my price range, but having spent over a year of my last life struggling to produce steel, being able to get chemical information out of an analysis skill seemed absolutely perfect. The only question was, would I be doing things like that enough for the skills to be worth it at this point? Or rather, for them to be worth more than the 12 stat points I could get instead. Vitality was an absolute must for me, I think, and so was endurance. I have died twice from violently being killed and once from what you could generously call medical complications. I haven't managed to hit even half of my life expectancy in any of my lives. Pody, I decide to add to my vitality before anything else can tempt me. Put 130 points into my vitality and bring it up to 20. Request denied. 130 incarnator points spent on vitality bonus stats would bring your vitality stat total to 15. To reach a total of 20, you will need to spend 230 incarnator points. Would you like to do so now? I would not, I quickly deny. If each bonus stat costs 10 incarnator points, why do I need to spend 230 incarnator points to reach 20 bonus vitality? The cost of a bonus stat point doubles for every 10 points purchased in that particular stat. Bonus vitality stats 11-20 cost 20 incarnator points each. Well, fuck. That would mean that 21 to 30 would cost a total of 400 incarnator points, and from 31 to 40 would cost 800. Past 40, each individual point would cost more than all the bonus stats cost from 0 to 10. So it probably wasn't very efficient to try and dump all my points into my stats like I had originally planned on. However, I might as well bring a couple up to 10 at least. Vitality and endurance for sure, maybe strength too because it probably overlapped with vitality considering that organs like the heart were muscles. More importantly, I doubted I would be born as royalty again for a long time. My second life would have benefited a lot from having some extra strength. Maybe I wouldn't have died so easily. Hard to say. I understand. In that case, please raise my strength, endurance, vitality, charisma, and acuity to 10 each. That should cost me 250 incarnator points, correct? It did, which left me with 344 points remaining. Should I drop another 90 on luck? Probably, I might as well. Once I did that, I had 254 points left. Time to bite the bullet and buy those analysis skills I suppose. Pody, I'd like to get minor analysis, life, minor analysis, chemical, minor analysis, farming, rotation, and examine for 175 points. As for the remaining 79, I'd like killing blow and healthy thoughts as well. I don't like killing people, but I have ended up having to do it anyway. It is better to be prepared, I think. My incarnator menu looked better now, at least. More full. Incarnator menu. Points balance, 9. Stats, strength, 10 plus endurance, 10 plus vitality, 10 plus agility, 1 plus dexterity, 1 plus perception, 1 plus acuity, 10 plus willpower, 1 plus charisma, 10 plus magic, 1 plus luck, 10 plus ability menu, attack, arts, communications, defense, general, intelligence, magic, relationships, vitals, records, life records, ability list, achievement list. Purchased abilities, minor analysis, life. When using an analyze type skill on a living target, you gain extra information. This skill's effectiveness increases with perception and acuity. Minor analysis, chemical. When using an analyze type skill on a physical target, you gain extra information about its chemical composition. This skill's effectiveness increases with perception and acuity. Minor analysis, farming, rotation. When using an analyze type skill on a crop, you gain information relevant to crop rotation. Better first impression. If you were going to give a good first impression upon meeting someone for the first time, your impression will be even better than before. Healthy thoughts. basic health practices are more effective. First words, when you are born into a world, you learn to understand your first language in that world much faster. Killing blow, when attacking a sapient with intent to kill you have 5% increased strength and agility. Examine, a basic analysis skill. Provides very basic information about the target. Well, I don't suppose there is any point waiting around here, I said with a sigh, my thoughts instinctively turning back to the world I just left. The family I just left. Hey, Pody. My voice is quiet. Is there really no way I can return to them? To my son? I know that I can't, but I can't help but ask you anyway. Unfortunately, not yet, Cadence. I understand, I am nearly crying, but I pull myself together. If I think about what I have lost, I will be a mess again. Pody hasn't taken me away from my child, I was simply too weak to stay with them, and Pody is giving me a chance to be better. Thank you for answering, Pody. I hadn't expected an answer like that. Maybe my anthropomorphizing of Pody was more correct than I had thought. I am ready to reincarnate now. Beginning reincarnation. You currently are only allowed to reincarnate into worlds with a system. World found. May your life be glorious, incarnator. The world went black for another moment, another eternity. I felt nothing, and then warmth and pressure. There was light, but it was muted this time, and I felt confined and desperate to stretch. I followed those instincts without thinking, stretching my body, and whatever was containing me opened. I was in water? Is this a swamp? Why is everything so huge? Where is my mother? Wait, if I look at my own body. Pody, I try to roar. What the fuck is this? And in the middle of a warm and shallow pool, the baby toad that was me let out an infuriated squeak. Chapter 25, Third Person Puff. Tens of kilometers away from civilization, deep into the forest and close to the mountains to the west, there was a very particular piece of geography. Thousands of years ago, it would have been a crater lake, where a meteorite slammed into the hills and punctured into the aquifer beneath. However, over thousands of years the water that filled the crater wore down the wall of the crater, and now a small stream flowed out from the spring in the crater out through the small valley and into the lowland. All that remained of the former lake was a small area of swampy, shallow water surrounded by centuries-old trees that had claimed the interior of the crater for the forest. It was spring, and the area was teeming with life. Were it somewhere else, an observer might see squirrels or deer or various amphibians, but some places in this world were special. The mana in this forest was high, which made it the perfect place for monsters to give birth. Even among monsters though, there was predator and prey. Along the edge of the swampy pools a lizard, about the length of a human forearm, was stalking its next meal. It was young, hatched only a week ago, and was months away from growing into the dog-sized monster that adventurers were sometimes called to hunt. Most prey tended to be quiet, but the lizard was following the sound of one prey monster in distress. Approaching one of the pools, the lizard catches sight of its prey, a small toad thrashing around in the shallow water. It was smaller than a closed fist, but a knowledgeable sapient would know it as the hatchling form of one of the species of giant toad monsters, some of which grew large enough to eat humans whole. The lizard monster, of course, knew nothing of this. It only saw its next meal, and an easy one at that. It had eaten this kind of creature before and knew them as weaker than itself. It was an easy meal without risk. It took a second to prepare itself, and then jumped into the water, charging at the toad and attempting to bite down and end the hunt in one go. Unlike the other hatchling toad monsters it had eaten, this one didn't try to run. No, it jumped at the lizard monster. The lizard was surprised, but not worried. Its little lizard brain was far from intelligent, but it had little problems with its food jumping into its mouth. It had no reason to be afraid of something so much weaker. The toad slammed into the lizard's face and sent it sprawling. The lizard tried to right itself in the water, splashing around as it attempted to get its feet under it. The toad didn't give it a chance, slamming into the lizard again and hitting the lizard's head into a small rock that was in the pool. The first time this happened, the lizard was disoriented. The second time, it was stunned. The third time, everything went dark. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Cadence Lee has a baby toad monster. Holy fuck, where the hell did that thing come from? I had just been cursing out Pody and suddenly a Pody damned dinosaur came out of nowhere and attacked me. I was so surprised I accidentally jumped into it instead of away from it, and had been shocked to find that despite it being something like 6 times my size it was shockingly weak. I had to admit, being attacked like that was probably my own fault. Thrashing around and making noise had probably been a bad idea, but on the other hand, I was a fucking toad. On the bright side, I had gotten some interesting notifications from that fight. You have defeated a LVL 4 hatchling green lizard and earned 10 XP. For killing a higher leveled monster than yourself, you have earned 50% extra experience. You earned 5 XP extra. Congratulations! You have reached level 1. You have gained +1 strength, +1 endurance, and +1 vitality. You have learned the skill, jumping. Jumping is now level 1. You have learned the skill, charge. Charge is now level 1. Since when was something like jumping a skill, and since when did skills have levels? I guessed I needed to check my menu, and I found the layout was different than I was used to. It also had new categories. Character menu, name, species, hatchling boreal toad level, 1/5 experience, 5/20ths. Class, locked health, 39/39ths mana, 0/0 stamina, 8400th. Statistics, STR, 14 end, 13 vit, 13 dodgy, 9 dex, 5 per, 15 AC, 20 will, 3 cha, 12 mgc, 1 lock, 163. Abilities. Breathes through her skin. Racial, toxic skin. Racial, minor analysis, life, minor analysis, chemical, minor analysis, farming, rotation, better first impression, healthy thoughts, first words, killing blow, examine, skills, jumping, 1 charge, 1. Opening the menu confirmed for me a couple of things. First, foremost, and worst, I was a toad. Second, I was both nameless and classless. Attempting to name myself ended up doing nothing, so I decided to leave that alone for now. The fact that my class was locked was a lot more worrying to me. In my last 2 lives the majority of my personal abilities had come from my class or classes. Classes were powerful and I would be safer if I had one. Third, I was able to double-check and see that my skills did in fact have levels, and that they were fairly common things. Moving away from the dead lizard, I decided to do a quick test as I started to swim in a slightly deeper part of the pool. Half a minute later I got a notification. You have learned the skill, swimming. Swimming is now level 1. Huh. It worked. Not only did it work, but I was able to feel the difference between when I had the skill and when I didn't. My movements felt easier and I moved faster after I got the skill, which was certainly an interesting thing. As to what that meant, honestly, I wasn't able to say yet. My thoughts felt like they were moving through mud. Except not like moving through mud, because I actually found that when I got out of the pool my toad body was very well suited for traveling in mud. The point was that my thoughts were slow, and while I didn't feel less intelligent it seemed to take me longer to reach conclusions than before. Maybe this did make me dumber overall though, because I found myself very easily distracted. My eyesight was rather poor when it came to color and detail, but even the smallest movement stood out to me and grabbed my attention. With my thoughts constantly being grabbed by a moving leaf or a ripple, my thinking was constantly interrupted. That was probably why it took me so long to realize that I wasn't just a toad, I was a fucking weak toad. If I subtract the stats I gained from leveling and my incarnator bonus, my species apparently had a mere 3 strength, 2 endurance, and 2 vitality. Well, I suppose I was a hatchling, but still. I wish I had more information. It would be nice if examine worked on the menu. Well, after I had thought that, I eventually managed to realize that I had never actually tried to use the ability on the menu. So I opened it again and tried to use it on the class part of the menu, hoping, despite the fact I lacked any ability that might supplement examine for this, that it would work and give me useful information. To my surprise, it did work. But before I could read the extra information, I was interrupted by another notification. Congratulations, you have learned the skill, Inspect. Inspect is now level 1. Incarnation skill overlap detected. Local system override in progress. Local system override complete. All relevant incarnator skills and local system skills will be merged. Error. Skill removed, Inspect. Error. Abilities removed, error. Ability names not found. Congratulations, you have learned the skill, Analyze. Analyze is now level 1. Merge complete. All merged skills will be reset on incarnator death. Resuming local system control. Da fuck? If this could happen, why the hell didn't Pody tell me when I asked? Well, if Analyze is better than Inspect and Examine, then I can't get too mad. Of course, I have no way to tell if it is or isn't, because all of the incarnator skills I purchased relating to inspection type skills are gone from my menu. Presumably, based on what I think Pody said, they were merged with Inspect to form Analyze, and I will get them back when I die. So back to my class then. Class, locked. Your classes are locked. Pure monsters may not gain classes. Human monsters may gain classes. Classes that have already been acquired remain unlocked during evolution. However, if a human monster evolves into a pure monster, they will be unable to gain new classes. All species have an inborn limit on the amount of classes they may acquire. I instinctively knew that the second part, the most informative part, was a product of my new skill. Admittedly, the extra information just raised more questions. Specifically, what evolution was. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to analyze my own analysis, which was the first thing I tried to do. The next thing I analyzed was my level. It was strange for me to have a level without a class, and I was curious as to why it was shown as 1/5. Your level. You are level 1. At your evolution stage, each level requires 10 XP more than the previous one. At your evolution stage, you gain 1 XP per day automatically. Reaching level 5 allows you to evolve. At your evolution stage, you will be able to evolve into a more developed version of your species. Fulfilling certain requirements may unlock the possibility to evolve into different species. Oh fuck yes, there is a way for me to stop being a toad. I wonder what kind of requirements there are? First though, I have just noticed that I am hungry. My adrenaline had finally calmed down, and now I have noticed that I was ravenous. Except, what do I eat? What do toads eat? Fuck this though, my last meal was prepared by royal chefs, and now I am considering whether or not I should go back to the lizard I killed and seeing if I can eat it. I don't have teeth though, so I don't think it would work. Unfortunately, as I was thinking in the mud, a beetle of some kind wandered by. The movement caught my attention and it actually looked really appetizing. Instinct took over and I snapped it up without thinking. Oh my lord Pody, I thought to myself in horror. I just ate a bug. And it tasted good. At least I was small, so I wouldn't have to eat much. Hell, apparently the bug wasn't even worth XP. Which really was just adding insult to injury. I am now eating bugs, and the bugs aren't worth eating. What would I even do now? I could hardly see, and I already knew there are giant to me anyway lizards wandering around that see me as their next fancy French meal. I am fairly certain that the blurry shapes around the edge of this pool are trees, and I was a bit scared to leave my pool to go check. I guess I need a home. A place I can feel safe. I looked down at my forelimbs. I can't build anything with these. Of course, I have no idea how to build anyway, so it might not even matter that I couldn't build with these limbs anyway. Maybe I could hide under a bush. There was a bush that was growing in the mud by the pool, and I hopped over to it. I guess I felt somewhat better once I was under it. Was I so nervous because of my new body? Probably. It makes sense for baby toads to be a bit apprehensive about the world around them. I wasn't even feeling completely safe hiding under this bush. Maybe I should dig a little burrow? You have learned the skill, digging. Digging is now level 1. Yeah, that felt much better. It was the middle of the day, but I was feeling tired, so I ended up falling asleep in my new little home. I woke up at night, and found myself able to see just fine. Maybe I am a nocturnal toad? The only question is, what should I do tonight? No, that isn't the only question. I should extend it into, what should I do with this life? I do not want to be a toad living in a muddy hole, and that means I need to evolve. To evolve, I need XP, and I can get XP from killing things or from simply waiting. I would have to spend over 2 weeks to get to level 2 if I took the latter option, but if I killed another one of those lizards I could get the XP I needed in one go. Was it worth the risk? Was it even a risk at all? That first lizard had ambushed me and I had smacked it around pretty easily. I guessed it really wasn't too much of a risk. Even if I fucked up and got eaten, I still wouldn't earn a strike for this life. So I snuck out of my bush and into the night. You have learned the skill, Stealth. Stealth is now level 1. Well, that is useful. I'd like to get the jump on them instead of the other way around, so getting the Stealth skill was very welcome. I awkwardly walked away from the pool, and once I got closer I was able to see that the shapes around the pool were trees. Giant ones, although that might have been a trick of my new perspective. I didn't really have a plan beyond walk around and find lizards while eating random insects that I come across. Thinking was too hard right now, although I was certainly aware that there were more holes in my plan than in a block of Swiss cheese. Not the least of which was my poor eyesight. In fact, my eyesight was poor enough that I apparently walked past one of those lizards without even noticing them, only for them to bite me in the butt. I kicked the fucker off, but that hurt. I even lost 9 HP from that. However, just like before, the lizard was weaker than me. My kick surprised it, and I repeated my tactic of throwing my body into the lizard and smashing it against the nearest solid object. Honestly, this is just too easy. If it wasn't for my piss-poor eyesight I could slaughter these things like bugs. Except that when this lizard let out a cry, it was answered by 2 others and 2 more lizards came by. Suddenly, it was 3-on-1. Chapter 26. With 2 more lizards approaching rapidly, I had to finish the first one quickly. Actually fighting 3 versus 1 might be a bit much for me, so I slammed the lizard into the tree again, and again. You have defeated a LVL 4 hatchling green lizard and earned 10 XP. For killing a higher leveled monster than yourself, you have earned 50% extra experience. You earned 5 XP extra. Congratulations! You have reached level 2. You have gained +1 strength, +1 endurance, and +1 vitality. Perfect. I have just enough time to jump out of the way of the lizards charging at me from behind. I hop to the side and the monsters ram into the dead body of their comrade and into each other. They almost seem to forget about me for a second as they start hissing at each other, and for a nanosecond I wonder if I can sneak away. No such luck though, as they turn on me again. The closest one lunges at me again and I hop over to hit the one lagging behind. I need to keep one of the lizards between me and the other one and not let them surround me. Unfortunately, without something to knock them against, the lizards are hurt but not disoriented by my attacks and the lizard tries to claw me. I dodge once but get scratched by the lizard's second claw. You have learned the skill, Dodge. Dodge is now level 1. Jumping has leveled up. Jumping is now level 2. You have been scratched. You lost 4 horsepower. I ignore the notifications for now as my opponents turn on me. I am forced to dodge again almost immediately as one of them tries to bite me again. I try to evade in such a way that the same movement allows me to slam into the slightly more injured one again. I don't feel like my body slams are doing much damage right now, but what else can I do? I don't really have any weapons, natural or otherwise. Clearly, the lizards don't care about my toxic skin racial skill either because they are immune or too stupid not to try and eat me anyway. I could try and kick? Before I even finish the thought, one of them knocks me over. It is now or never, I either kick or die. A lizard is about to pounce onto my exposed belly and I kick out as hard as I can and it tosses the lizard into the air. My thoughts are, but right now, at level 2, I am 5 times stronger than a normal level 1 hatchling boreal toad, 3 times stronger than a level 3 hatchling boreal toad and only a little less than 1/6 as strong as the average human. I might not have enough mass to really hurt them much when I charge into them, but I have more than enough strength to toss them around. The only issue is that my toady anatomy isn't exactly suited for this, so I need to get creative. I manage to scramble back onto my feet and launch into my newest plan, hopping on top of the lizard's head. I immediately jump off, the force of my movements cracking the lizard's head against the ground. I aim my jump at the other lizard, slamming it off its feet again. If I keep this up, I will undoubtedly win. 15 minutes later I stood alone in the forest, victorious over the bodies of my enemies. You have been scratched. You have lost 3 horsepower. You have been scratched. You have lost 4 horsepower. You have defeated a LVL 3 hatchling green lizard and earned 10 XP. For killing a higher leveled monster than yourself, you have earned 50% extra experience. You earned 5 XP extra. You have defeated a LVL 4 hatchling green lizard and earned 10 XP. For killing a higher leveled monster than yourself, you have earned 50% extra experience. You earned 5 XP extra. Congratulations! You have reached level 3. You have gained +1 strength, +1 endurance, and +1 vitality. Jumping has leveled up. Jumping is now level 3. Dodge has leveled up. Dodge is now level 2. Charge has leveled up. Charge is now level 2. Yeah, I might have won, but it had hurt to do so. I had lost 20 health in that fight, and I was exhausted now as well. I decide to slowly head back to my bra. I'd rather not rush right now. My head won't turn enough without me turning my body, so I can't tell for certain, but I am fairly sure I am bleeding a little bit in a couple of places. I need to take some time to recover. On the bright side, my updated character menu definitely showed progress. Character menu, name, species, hatchling boreal toad level, 3/5 experience, 0/40. Class, locked health, 25/45 mana, 0/0 stamina, 3500th. Statistics, STR, 16 end, 15 bit, 15 dodgy, 9 dex, 5 per, 15 AC, 20 will, 3 cha, 12 mgc, 1 lock, 163. Abilities: breathes through her skin, racial, toxic skin, racial, better first impression, healthy thoughts, first words, killing blow, skills, analysis, 1 charge, 2 digging, 1 dodge, 2 jumping, 3 swimming, 2 stealth, 1 wait, how do I heal? Hopefully I will do it naturally. What if I am dying right now? Analysis, help me. Your health. When your health reaches 0, you die. Your current health is 25/45. You are healing at a rate of 1 horsepower day. Base health is equal to your N plus 2 times your VIT. H equals E plus 2V. Base health regeneration is equal to 1 plus your VIT divided by 100 rounded down to the nearest whole integer. 1 plus V divided by 100 equals R. You heal 2 times faster while sleeping. How the hell was I supposed to know those mathematics abilities would suddenly be useful for my survival as a toad? Creeping through the forest on my way to my little hole, I have the time I need to think. And I really do need the time. I had never really considered what it meant to have low stats before. Sure, every time I was reborn as a baby my stats were pretty low, however I rarely had to use them. Babies don't often need to fight and their only real job was to learn things. My low acuity would be a problem, except that my ability first words made it easier to learn a new language, which was the only difficult thing to really learn. Otherwise, what did I have to use my acuity for as a baby? What danger could I be in if my low willpower means I am distracted easily? Plus, if you combine low acuity and willpower, that just exacerbates my inability to think. Not only do I think slowly, but I get distracted easily. It has been incredibly hard to keep up this train of thought during my walk even. My low endurance and vitality is also screwing me over as well here. Those lizards could probably barely hurt me if I had the average human's endurance, and the damage wouldn't even matter because I'd have around 300 health. Plus, I would heal twice as fast. As it is, it will take me somewhere between 10 and 20 days. Doing the math to actually figure out how many days is too hard right now. I finally made it back to the pool, having eaten a few more bugs along the way so that I wasn't hungry, and made my way back to the bush and my little hole in the ground. I hunkered down inside and went to sleep. Asterisk. I'm not sure how long I was asleep. It was daylight, but my XP had yet to tick up. Presumably it would go up by 1 when 24 hours had passed since I hatched. My health had yet to go up as well, which left me in a difficult situation. There was a part of me that wanted to hunt, to fight, but I was also terrified to do so when I was just a little bit above half health. I learned, from reading the analysis of my species name, that I wasn't just any old toad. No, a full-grown member of my species could swallow people whole. Actually, it made me wonder why I didn't see one of my parents around. You would think it would be hard to miss a giant toad like that. More importantly, my species was described as highly aggressive carnivores, which explained where my constant and ill-advised desire to hunt came from. If I just sat here, I would probably be overwhelmed by my instinct, so I had to do something. In the end, I decided to make my home a little more homey. First, by digging out a bunch of mud and creating a little wall around my little hole beneath the bush. I gathered sticks to help hold the inside together and fetched pebbles to go around the outside. Digging has leveled up. Digging is now level 2. You have learned the skill, crafting. Crafting is now level 1. Shouldn't it be construction? Is this discrimination against toads? Don't make me make potty slap you again, system. A few hours later, I got another notification. You have gained 1 XP. Woohoo, I've survived 1 whole day. I even built myself a home in that time. I feel very productive right now. Of course, when I step back to look at my new house, I have to admit that it might just be a pile of muddy sticks and rocks, but what matters is that it is my pile of muddy sticks and rocks. I did my best to sleep and rest in Toadome, but by the time I had recovered a single point of health, I had to admit I was incredibly bored. I wanted to hunt so bad. Sitting still when I wasn't tired was simply impossible. I just couldn't do it. I ended up hopping around my little home for hours, desperately trying to expend enough energy that I could go back to sleep and heal. Jumping has leveled up. Jumping is now level 4. The worst part was when a snake came to the pool to drink water and my instincts were to just attack it immediately. Watching it drink, apparently unaware that I was even here, was driving me to madness. I barely had the wherewithal to analyze it before I leaped out. Young glass lizard, LVL1, often confused for a snake, the glass lizard is, as its name implies, a legless lizard. They can move surprisingly fast. Quite cowardly. Glass lizards' tails can be detached and when detached will thrash around to distract predators. While carnivorous, they cannot unhinge their jaws as snakes do, which limits the size of their prey. Adult shatter glass lizards are capable of regrowing their main body from their broken-off tails, but most other varieties are incapable of doing this. It is lower level than me. As long as I am not distracted by its tail, I should be fine. Weird that it is a lizard though, it really looks like a snake. Either way, it is going to be my first test subject, for an idea I had for hunting. At some point, I noticed that I didn't have to always look forward or move my head to shift my eyes. I could actually somewhat look behind me without even moving. Although my depth perception became pretty shitty, which might be very relevant in a second because my grand plan was to kick some of the small stones I gathered at my opponents. Yeah, I missed and the lizard ran, slithered away. It really was quite fast. On the bright side, it didn't seem interested in trying to eat me, so I think I can call that encounter a win and pat myself on the back. The only issue was that I was back to square one, unable to sit still. I decided to try and play the ambush predator. I feel like it should be easy with my racial ability. Breathes through her skin allowed me to breathe underwater, and in mud. That bit seemed strange to me, but I will think about it when I am smart again. Thoughts were hard, so I kept my plan simple. I sit under the water, creatures come to drink, I jump out and murder them. Easy. The only problem was that the first monster to come to the water was huge. Young green lizard, LVL2, a highly aggressive and common lizard monster. Known for attacking just about anything that moves. Only growing to the size of a large dog and often unwilling to share territory with others of its kind when it reaches the young and adult stages. Green lizards are considered a nuisance monster and do not have a posted bounty from the guild. In fact, because they tend to suppress the younger forms of much more dangerous monsters, it is generally advised to try and avoid killing them whenever possible. Suppressing the younger forms of much more dangerous monsters, isn't that just a euphemism for, it eats other monsters' babies before they can grow up? It is a lower level than me, but it is 4 times the size of the green lizards I've seen so far. Is it because it is young instead of a hatchling? Does that mean that the young glass lizard I scared away probably could have turned around and murdered me? I am just going to stay under the water of this pool and just let it drink. I am not ready to fight something like this, especially not when I am injured. Stealth has leveled up. Stealth is now level 2. I wait for a while after the big lizard leaves and then pick a different spot for my ambush. It is, for the most part, an utter failure. Monsters come and drink, and I am almost always too far away to do anything. It was incredibly frustrating, although it kept my instincts down enough for me not to actually try and hunt the lizards down, so I guess you could call this a day of rest and relaxation. At least I managed to level up my swimming. Swimming has leveled up. Swimming is now level 2. As soon as dusk hit though, I no longer was content to just sit around in the pool. I had to hunt. The most I could manage was to try and be far more careful this night. The area was swampy, so I decided to try and stick to the shallow water instead of just wandering into the woods. I had a lot more success sneaking around when I hid under the water. My first attack, on a level 2 infant blood squirrel, was a wonderful success. I even learned the skill ambush. Unfortunately, it was barely worth any XP at all. I only gained a single point from it because there was a 50% XP penalty since it was below my level. I suppose it shaved a day off the time until I could evolve out of being a murder toad, which was something I guess. I did get a better idea of the wildlife that lived in the area. Considering that most everything was trying to kill everything else, it was pretty diverse. Monsters were fighting each other everywhere. I guess monsters are born and then fight amongst each other until the strongest evolve and go somewhere else. Most of them looked like things I would have seen in the forest on Earth, just dialed up to 11. However, some things were distinctly not Earth-like, the slime being one of them. Slimes, as far as I can remember, were supposed to be some of the weakest creatures in a lot of fictions. Here, I watched spawning common slime slaughter a whole nest of blood squirrels. Anything that tried to attack it just got stuck in it and eaten. It wasn't until the hatchling glass lizard managed to break, out of pure luck or maybe pure luck, an orb floating in the slime that the thing died, and it was basically dead and half digested anyway. I, not wanting the XP to go to waste, finished the glass lizard off and gained 6 XP for my trouble. It was level 3 so I didn't get a penalty or a bonus for my effort. Counting the XP I gained passively, I only managed to gain 5 XP today and recover a single point of health. If things kept going at this rate it would take me a long while to evolve into something else. From an XP point of view, the only prey worth hunting was at or above my level. I would head back to Toadome tonight, but tomorrow I think I will have to take some risks. Perhaps, as hard as it might be, it was time to stop thinking like a murder toad and start thinking like a person. I didn't need to be stronger than my opponents if I fought smarter. and my acuity might be causing me trouble, but I still was far more intelligent than lizards that charged ahead with their mouths open and their eyes closed. Chapter 27. One thing I found interesting was that I seemed to level some skills faster than others. Specifically, the skills swimming, digging, and jumping leveled much more quickly than crafting or analysis. Perhaps it was because they were skills that a toad would use, and I am a toad? Hard for me to say, but I am at least happy that I am leveling my digging right now. Digging has leveled up. Digging is now level 3. In fairness, I was doing a lot of digging. My plan was simple: dig hole, bait lizard into hole, collapse hole, lizard dies. Since I could apparently breathe in mud, which is still such an odd thing to be capable of, I figured I could just collapse the trap on top of myself and then dig my way out again. Meanwhile, the lizard, or whatever I catch, suffocates and dies. Thing is, even though I am large for a toadlet, my prey was far larger than I was. That meant I had to dig a big hole. For me, anyway. If I had a human body and a shovel, I could finish this in a few minutes. I even got to test my whole breath in mud thing when my trap collapsed on me by accident. I panicked a bit, but it mostly worked. It was very strange, but apparently I didn't really need to breathe all that much anyway. I could probably hold my breath for a long time, but it would be hard to test since I can't exactly stop my skin from breathing. So I had to dig the whole thing out again. Digging has leveled up. Digging is now level 4. This time though, I dragged sticks over, like I did for my wall, to help try and hold the ceiling up. It turned out that it was a lot more complex to prop up the top of my trap than just sticking sticks into it though, and it collapsed again. So I dug my way out and started again. This time, I tried mixing plant material into the roof. I tried to make it work well with my stick supports, but that didn't work either at first. So I had to dig my way out again, and try again. Digging has leveled up. Digging is now level 5. I actually ended up going back to Toadome for the morning and going to sleep. I woke up and started working again, now trying to use horizontal sticks and plant material to help hold up the top of the trap. Doing all of this without hands was rough. I had to move everything by biting them and dragging them into place. On the bright side, I recovered 1 more point of health and gained 1 more point of XP. Woohoo! To make it worse, I had to hide more than a few times when my would-be predator and prey came by before I was ready. That lengthened my construction time considerably, but slowly and surely, I finished my trap. You have learned the skill, trap making. Trap making is now level 1. Huh. I didn't get the skill until I actually finished the trap. Just trying to make one wasn't enough. Probably. I suppose I could have been getting some sort of hidden experience and gained some on every attempt only for this trap to put me over the limit for level 1. There really isn't any way for me to tell for sure. I guess it isn't important right now. No, what was important was baiting my prey. Of course, the bait was me, so if I messed this up I would get to go back to Poti via a lizard's digestive tract. Maybe this wasn't the best idea. I suppose it is a better plan than fighting them head-on, but I probably would be far safer by just hunting hatchling green lizards. But I don't want to be a toad for a month or 2, so here we go. I said that, of course, but the reality was I still had to wait for one of them to come by. Sitting still was just not something my species was made for though, so my weight was very nearly unbearable. It was just hours of sitting on top of my totem wall, peeking out from the leaves and waiting for my chance. I actually fell asleep, and when I woke up one of the young green lizards was at the water. Adrenaline flooded my body as I hopped out of my hiding spot, moving to the front of my little trap. It hadn't noticed me yet, so I guess I should try and catch its attention. Squeak. You have learned the skill, Taunt. Taunt is now level 1. Are you mocking me, system? Fuck you. It is your and Poti's fault that I am a squeaky toad. I almost forgot about what I was doing when I got that notification. Fortunately, having a lizard that was the size of a small dog charging at me helped remind me of what I was doing. I turned and hopped my way down the hole with the lizard right behind me. It was fast. It was very fast and big and strong, so it very easily broke my crude supports and the ceiling collapsed on us both. I started to dig my way out, feeling the vibrations of the struggling lizard behind me. I made it to the surface and proudly turned to observe my handiwork. The lizard's tail was sticking out of the dirt and wiggling, so I just had to wait for it to. Is it digging its way out? Oh, fuck me, it is. I need to run away before it gets out and murders me. I flee to Toadome, sealing myself in my hole and hoping that the now probably incredibly angry lizard doesn't find me. I can feel the vibrations and just barely hear the hiss of a very furious monster. I have a moment of terror when I feel the mud that covers me get pressed down. Something large must have walked over me and it wasn't hard to guess what. I can't really be sure how long I waited under the mud, but after a long wait I went up to the surface again. It was night out and Toadome was in ruins. My wall had done absolutely nothing to stop the rampaging young lizard and I had a few holes in it now. First things first, I cautiously hopped around and made sure that the lizard was gone. After that, I started to rebuild my little home under the bush. It wasn't a nice feeling to realize that my home, as painfully crude as it was so easy to destroy. While I was working, my thoughts turned to my failed plan. I suppose that I had never considered that they could just dig themselves out and now I felt like an idiot. I either had to dump enough dirt and mud onto whatever I trapped that they couldn't escape because of the weight, or I had to find another way to stop them from escaping. I had no idea where I would even begin to do either. I was probably at the limit of what I could make as a toad when it came to pet traps. The lack of hands was just too problematic. So what could I do? Could I weaponize my poison somehow? An analysis of my toxic skin ability made me doubt that I could do a whole lot with it. You secrete poison through your skin. Many, if not most, frog monsters use poison in some way. In most of these monsters the toxins are relatively weak, but in some they are lethally potent. Your toxin is very mild and causes irritation to eyes and nose on contact. Significant consumption may result in cardiac arrest in small monsters. Admittedly, the may result in cardiac arrest bit looked promising, but it was qualified by the significant consumption part. I could read between the lines enough to know that significant consumption meant eating me. Presuming my poison had any effect on these lizards at all, which I doubted it would. Although, I didn't have to hunt lizards, did I? There was a whole ecosystem out there, and there had to be something that was weak to my toxin. Or, of course, I could just hunt weaker monsters. I had 9 XP right now, so I need 31 more to level up. After that I would require another 50 XP to level up enough to evolve. So, if I can hunt 3 monsters below my level every day I would need to spend 3 weeks to evolve. For some reason that just feels unbearably long. I need to invest in willpower after this. If I had some patience this wouldn't even be a problem. Worse still, in the back of my mind I could just feel that I already had all the tools I needed and I just had to put them together. It wasn't until I ended up kicking a pebble out of frustration that the answer came to me. To properly throw rocks at a monster, I needed to use my back legs. But I couldn't aim very well, so I would need a spot that I could hit if I practiced in a monster that wouldn't dodge. Obviously, no monster would just sit there and let me throw rocks at it. But if they were caught in a trap, it would be dangerous, but I had already accepted the danger. It would also take a lot more digging and working, so there wasn't any time to waste. I dug up my old traps to salvage the materials I had used, planning to make a more traditional pit trap. My hope was that if I angled the sticks downward in the pit, when the lizard put its leg in it would have difficulty pulling it back out. If it got out easily, well, I wouldn't necessarily be fucked, but I would probably be fucked. I would much prefer that the lizard just stayed put and died from me tossing rocks at it, although this latest failure had shown that I probably shouldn't bet on that happening. I should plan around the idea that it would escape the trap before I killed it. If I could get my toxin into the lizard's eyes that would really help my chances after it does escape. If it couldn't see me, it wouldn't be nearly as much of a threat. I wasn't sure if my poison would work on the lizard, but even if it could ingest my toxins just fine, it probably didn't want them in its eyes. Actually getting the poison to its eyes would be the difficult part though. Maybe I should just rub myself against everything I was using as part of my trap. I'll just make everything poisoned and hope that it gives me an edge when I try again. I do discover that one stick in particular makes a good back scratcher though, and get distracted by that for an hour though. Low willpower is difficult to deal with. My preparations for my second attempt take me another 2 days. I would kill for hands and a shovel right now. Although if I had both of those I would just whack the lizard over the head with the shovel instead of doing any of this crap. With 2 more HP and 2 more XP in the bank, I got my pile of stones ready and got ready for my second attempt. I had to wait a while, but eventually the young green lizard returned. It was more careful this time, warily looking around as it approached the water. I, of course, demanded its attention with my determined and powerful war cry. Squeak, squeak. I proudly taunted my opponent, and it seemed to remember me. It hissed angrily and charged me, because that worked so well last time. Just like last time, it ran right into my trap without even a second thought, and a second later. Crack. The sound of my kick pebble hitting its scales was actually pretty loud, and more importantly it seemed to hurt it. Although, it didn't look very hurt by it. No matter. I brought a lot of rocks for this. You have learned the skill, throwing. Throwing is now level 1. It wasn't that easy though. After a dozen rocks to the face, the lizard finally managed to break its way out of the trap and charge at me again. Only to fall into the second trap I had made. Ha ha ha, now you know the depths of my genius. Now die for me, you fool. My confidence was ill-founded however, as I was not able to kill it before it broke out of the second trap. I would have liked to say that I had prepared a third, but honestly, I didn't think I would need a third. Live and learn, presuming I survived the next few minutes. Fortunately for me, a few dozen rocks thrown into the lizard's head made it a little punch drunk. It wasn't able to charge in a straight line, and I easily dodged it, hopping off my wall to kick some of the random pebbles that I had used to make my ramshackle structure at the lizard. I decided to call the fact that I had used rocks on the outside of my wall future planning. Who is to know that it wasn't all part of my grand plan? Pody isn't going to tell anyone. The next minute followed a pretty easy pattern. Throw rocks at the lizard, dodge its shaky charge, and throw more rocks at the lizard. It is really tough. Or maybe I am really weak. It doesn't matter I suppose, since it can't actually high. Halfway through that thought I got smacked by the lizard's tail and was tossed into the air. You have been hit. You have lost 20 horsepower. Holy fucking shit, by Pody that hurt. I was down to a mere 10 health. Another hit like that and I would die instantly. I almost decided to cut and run into the water, but the lizard didn't look any better than me. It wasn't pursuing me for some reason, and it actually seemed to be struggling to stand. So I hopped, painfully, over to a rock and kicked it at the lizard to start our dance again. I am not sure how long it took, but eventually I squeaked out a win. You have defeated a LVL 2 young green lizard and earned 31 XP. For killing a monster in a higher evolution state than yourself, you have earned 100% extra experience. You earned 31 XP extra. Congratulations! You have reached level 4. You have gained +1 strength, +1 endurance, and +1 vitality. It didn't feel like a win though. I was basically dead. My instincts were driving me towards suicidal decisions, and it had nearly cost me this life. The main benefit of this fight wasn't the experience, but the fact that now that I was so injured my instincts had quieted down enough that I could really consider just hiding at my home and eating bugs instead of trying to hunt creatures dozens of times my size. I limped home, dragged my wall back into some semblance of what a wall is supposed to look like, and went back to my little hole in the ground. I checked my menu, and while the gains did make me happy, the 10 HP I had reminded me of how close I came to death. Character menu, name, species, hatchling boreal toad level, 4/5 experience, 32/50. Class, locked health, 10/48 mana, 0/0 stamina, 03/100. Statistics, STR, 17 end, 16 bit, 16 Agi, 9 dex, 5 per, 15 AC, 20 will, 3 cha, 12 mgc, 1 lock, 163. Abilities. Breathes through her skin. Racial, toxic skin. Racial, better first impression. Healthy thoughts, first words. Killing blow. Skills, ambush, 1 analysis, 1 charge, 2 crafting, 1 digging, 5 dodge, 2 jumping, 4 swimming, 2 stealth, 2 taunt, 1 throwing, 1 trap making, 1. How long would I be able to rest though? How long would I have before I got dragged around by my instincts into another idiotic decision? I honestly felt a strange sort of terror with the realization that without willpower I was less a toad with a human mind and more a toad with a human looking through its eyes while it went on about its life. Sure, a regular toad wouldn't have been digging traps, but a reasonable human wouldn't be thinking about hunting when they were half dead. Could I work on my willpower somehow? Maybe try to take up meditation? I had no clue, but I was going to have to try during my convalescence or I probably would die trying to kill a dragon with a bit of dirt or something equally stupid. Very few things happen at the right time, and the rest do not happen at all. The conscientious historian will correct these defects. Mark Twain, on the historian Herodotus. For all historians, there comes a point where there simply is no more knowledge that can be found on a subject through anthropology and careful study. Indeed, few things can obscure facts worse than time, and with over 3 millennia having passed, even linguists couldn't be sure they were pronouncing the names of the ancient people they were researching correctly. Add to that the chaos of the descent, the collapse of the Imperial Confederation, and the imperfect record-keeping over the years, and any historian would be stymied, even with Hindustan itself allowing access to its records. Fortunately for history, and unfortunately for Timothy's concerns about legality, Dr. Karen Smith could call upon. The Hintai Empire had renamed itself 1,000 years or so after the descent to Hindustan, but it was still functionally the same empire as before. The Imperial Republic Triumvirate of Hindustan had a government designed to maximize governance-based skills. Most of that was unimportant, except that the imperial portion of the triumvirate could trace their family line back to Emperor Seth. They were more than just his descendants, they were his family. A week ago, the distinction would have been lost on Timothy. He, as anyone with a scholar-derived class would, had a basic knowledge of magic. He had a small selection of spells that were useful to his class, and a general knowledge of the basics of all the important schools and their history. What he had not had was practical experience in necromancy, the school of magic widely considered to be the most highly regulated in the world. Even blood magic was considered a less dangerous and distasteful magic, and blood magic required some kind of harm to function. And on the subject of blood magic, Dr. Smith had somehow convinced a member of the imperial family to join them in this dark, underground room. That man, that prince, was currently helping to apply his own blood to the circle being drawn by several high-level necromancers and blood mages in this almost certainly illegal summoning chamber. Timothy wasn't aware of the specific laws, but he was well aware that having a specially prepared inmate summoning chamber was something regulated and generally not hidden behind a rock on a random hillside well away from civilization. He sighed, thinking that it had been going so well. After Timothy had seen that Stella, he had been overwhelmingly excited to help start unraveling the mystery it presented. He was ready to grab his tools and get to work, no matter how hard that work might be. Except that they weren't able to find anything more at all. Princess Hometra was, as far as Timothy could tell, a complete nonentity in ancient Rosharan. Sure, she had existed and been born in that desert kingdom, but prior to her involvement in the Peace of Flowers she had done nothing at all. Well, that wasn't entirely true. There were several treatises on classes and skills that were believed to be written by Princess Hometra while she lived in Rosharan. It was just that those documents came from the hentai and that Rasharan barely mentioned the princess themselves. At most, she was noted as excelling at music. Considering how much Dr. Smith was able to definitely attribute to the princess and how much she believed probably was attributable to the princess, the lack of records in Rasharan was suspicious to her. Timothy, if he was honest, was less suspicious of that. The bloodbath that was the Rasharan succession at the time was well known, and his personal theory was that, if Hometra was responsible for the shift in the hentai empire's behavior, she had been unable to do anything in Rasharan due to pressure from her siblings. Yes, that was supposed to be how historians worked. Find as much evidence as they can, and then form opinions based on that evidence. If they sometimes disagree, well, who can really say what happened for certain? We call upon you, the spirit of Emperor Seth, intoned the high necromancer, because the answer to Timothy's rhetorical musings was simple: someone who was there at the time. By the blood of your family, willingly given, we call out to the land of the dead. Cold mist began to gather, but it wasn't wet or damp. In fact, the formerly slightly damp room had become bone dry as the mist slowly flowed from the edges of the room into the center of the circle. Soon, it took the shape of a man. Family, you say? The mist twisted, becoming more and more detailed as the features of Emperor Seth became sharper. I should be glad that my family still walks, but I can't imagine you have called on me for merely a social visit. Actually, in a way, we have. Dr. Smith said with a smile, there is no crisis or issue we need help solving, save that of people whose curiosity and desire to know the past was simply too great for us not to try and speak to you. Truly. The Emperor seemed a bit amused by this, to go so far just to ask some questions. I suppose I don't mind indulging so long as you answer some of mine in turn. But of course, Dr. Smith said smoothly, though please allow me to introduce you to Prince Kunyat first. Your Imperial Highness. Kunyat stepped forward and bowed. It is an honor and a delight as your descendant to speak with you, ancestor. There is no need for titles, Soot said, waving his hand to accentuate the dismissal of formality. They are of no use to me here in death, and it seems that my empire has an emperor now still. To refer to me as such undermines his authority. You may call me Soot. Timothy mentally corrected himself, having always believed that the ancient emperor's name was pronounced Seth, before turning his attention back to the proceedings. I am honored. Kunyat bowed slightly again before continuing. Soot, it has been over 3,000 years since you passed. In that time the empire has waxed and waned, built and rebuilt. In addition to providing my blood to link to you, I am here to attest that what Dr. Smith, a world-renowned historian, says next was done with the utmost care and respect. When the city expanded, we did not know what we had stumbled upon until she investigated. Soot turned to the doctor, giving her a silent invitation to speak. Even dead for so long, the emperor still commanded the flow of the conversation with ease. Timothy could only envy how naturally the man was able to take control with something as simple as a gesture and a look. I was asked to evaluate and catalog a site found when construction crews broke the ground. Dr. Smith answered the honest question, and found the burial chamber of Princess Hometra. Soot's face instantly became guarded, and the dynamic suddenly changed. The emperor, who had subtly asserted dominance over the conversation, was now on the back foot as Dr. Smith advanced. There we found something astonishing, a stela, ancient yet showing scenes and knowledge that was a mere couple of 100 years old. Oddly, the spectre relaxed at that statement. A couple 100 years old, you say? Soot seemed to contemplate the thought, letting his words out slowly like he was considering everything he said deeply before he spoke. Has society truly advanced so far? Admittedly, it wasn't quite that long ago that we figured out all the dangers involved in pollution, but otherwise yes. However, we were curious how that information got onto that stela in your wife's, Hometra's, tomb, curious enough that we decided to ask. Her name is Hemmer, Soot chuckled. I suppose you already tried to call her? Correct, we did try. Timothy hadn't actually known about that, but given that this ritual involved a high necromancer was over level 50, He couldn't believe that they had failed. Yet the doctor obviously had, or Timothy wouldn't be here now. It never had a chance of working, you know? She isn't dead. At that statement from Suit, Kanye burst out saying, I knew it. I just knew it. My skill, hunch, is never wrong. Timothy hadn't even been surprised to find out that the prince had conspiracy theorist as a secondary class. After working with Dr. Smith for months, he felt that there was very little that could shock him at this point. The claim that Princess Hammer of Rasharon was not dead definitely could, though. Of course, not dead could mean a lot of different things. The princess could be undead, or somehow transformed, perhaps even ascended somehow. Timothy had seen the woman's body, what was left of it, so that limited the options a great deal, but it would seem that Hammer's spirit was still in the world. Is she okay? Does she need help? The High Necromancer interrupted here. It seems that despite being involved in illegal acts, the man was not amoral. A dead spirit, bound to the material realm for thousands of years, would be an immense torment. Enough that it would not be surprising to see the criminal High Necromancer go to the authorities himself for help, free one if he needed it. Ha! I doubt it, Suit laughed. But you couldn't help her anyways, although I appreciate your concern for her. But as I said, she isn't dead. While we did treat her body with the utmost respect, it was removed from the tomb. Dr. Smith said carefully, it was confirmed as the body of Princess Hammer. It would, because it was. She died, but she isn't dead. Whether or not I explain more, I haven't decided yet. Dr. Smith can keep a secret. Timothy was shocked to find himself speaking, suddenly occupying the full attention of the ancient ghost of an emperor. Aside from the people who work with her, all of whom, myself included, have signed magical contracts that will kill us if we share these secrets, the only person who could share your secret is your own descendant. But I shouldn't think that would be necessary. I have thought about it for a long while, and I believe I know why the stela was only carved on one side and why it was in Princess Hammer's tomb. Oh! Timothy got no clues from the neutral response of Suit, but steeled himself and kept talking anyways. I believe it is unfinished, and was left unfinished because you found information that you decided was too dangerous for people to have. Timothy had worried he might pick up the conspiracy theorist class himself, which how much he had thought that. I even think, considering when our society discovered the information on that stela, I know what it was. If I were to ask you about a great explosive that poisoned the land it was used on, what would you say? Smart kid. Suit replied, although the notes and letters she left me did not contain information on how to create something like that. It did contain warnings not to let them be created at all. My wife warned me that they could destroy the world. There were many things she only knew vaguely how to create, and a few she wanted me to steer humanity away from ever developing. Suit chuckled again. I love her dearly, but my wife was truly naive. Sure, her descriptions were far from detailed, but telling people what not to do is basically the same thing as giving them a rough guideline of how to do it. Although my biggest fear had nothing to do with those bombs. Instead, I worried about germ theory, because I realized that most of the technology restrictions she spoke of could be bypassed by someone with the right class. Her warnings, meant to save lives, would have undoubtedly given someone the idea to weaponize it, even though we would also lack the technology to defend against it. That was terrifyingly more reasonable than atomic weaponry. Biological warfare was, in comparison, easy and cheap. Suit wasn't wrong that there were classes that could utilize microbes to horrendous effect. Just having the Plague Mage class was considered grounds for execution in most countries. But you didn't even need a class to spread infected blankets or contaminated water, and the ancient world would have had no medicine and only basic priestly healing. I suppose that you would be interested in learning about my wife then? Dr. Smith's smile was all the confirmation anyone needed. Tope continued, thanks for listening.